I was actually just thinking there. Niall?
You were thinking, yeah, it was that there was a danger to health and safety risk.
Sort of silence in the air.
Yeah. No, what I didn't want to distract you. I know it doesn't necessarily come easy. Giving thought and consideration to matters. It's not necessarily someone's.
It's not my MO.
One's, traditional MO, yeah.
Well, do you want to know what I was thinking about?
Go on.
Okay. I was just thinking, so Nathan McDonnell isn't sort of a familiar face in the position he's in.
No.
And, it's interesting because we found out this week that he is indicating there may be a guilty plea coming.
Yeah.
But he hasn't really properly consulted with his solicitor before this has come out in court.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was very unusual.
And early.
Well, it's very early. I mean, he's due to be served with a book of evidence. So, I mean, the traditional way that these things work, people have these mentioned dates, and when they then get the book of evidence, which is the full case against them. You get to read it from start to finish, all the statements, all the, digital evidence or whatever there might be in this case. And then there's an arraignment afterwards, at which point somebody enters a formal guilty or not guilty plea. They've read the book of evidence. They know what they're facing. And then that could be another good few months down the line. Somebody may at that point choose to plead guilty, and they would get the credit for an early guilty plea at that stage. So it still traditionally seems to be some steps away.
Yeah. But I mean, I imagine a lawyer would advise a client to wait to see the book of evidence before they indicate a plea.
Normally you would, and because you get that early credit, if you plead guilty on an arraignment, you're not going to lose much, I suppose, by looking at the book of evidence. Mm-hmm. However, in this case, Nathan McDonnell was up yesterday for, I think, what would have been typically a routine sort of hearing in advance of the book of evidence being served. When he did come before the courts,
by video link.
By video link. Yeah, came before the courts from Portlaoise by video link. And his solicitor, when speaking to the judge, indicated that there might be a guilty plea. And he also asked for some time to consult with his client because he did not seem to be privy to this guilty plea. So, that is unusual, I would say. Mr. McDonnell's solicitor said he had no idea what was going on until the case came to court this morning, which was yesterday, and that the state was cloak and dagger about it. And he asked that the case be mentioned ahead of next Tuesday, July the 30th, when the book of evidence is due. So it'll go back to court on Monday. So he then wanted to have a private consultation with his client. So the guilty plea clearly was news to him, as he said. However, his client has obviously indicated to somebody, presumably somebody in
charge of the investigation.
In charge of the investigation, or involved in the investigation to some extent, that he's going to plead guilty. He obviously hasn't pled guilty at this stage formally. So at this point he remains.
And they're not even formally yet before the Special Criminal Court, although it has been indicated to the courts that they're headed for there.
Yeah.
But it's very unusual territory for Nathan McDonnell. I mean, a couple of years ago, he's a high-flying businessman. He owns various companies, including the Ballyseedy Garden Centre, where, of course, the charges affecting him relate to, and the unlawful possession of methamphetamine there between October 27th last and February 12th this year.
Yeah.
The Garden Centre, I think, has changed.
It's changed its name now.
And
its ownership structure. But, Nathan McDonnell obviously was a successful local businessman, but he also had a kind of national profile. He'd appeared on Virgin Media on a number of occasions, giving advice on, plants and stuff like that. I'm sure that who is it more? Yeah, no, he'd been a guest on Virgin Media speaking about decorating your home. Various things
plans, basically, that makes
stuff
really
like stuff like that I know nothing about.
Yeah,
and he was kind of, I suppose, socialite to a degree. And there's been absolutely huge interest in whenever he's appeared in court. Very unusually, I think, for these sort of cases that you see crowds of people going to have a look. Just a very well-known guy locally, and certainly not somebody that they're would have expected to be in the position that he is in.
Exactly.
And sometimes when people get in those positions, maybe he feels like
maybe he wants it all over.
Certainly certainly that seems to be the indication. Now, of course, until he enters a formal plea, he remains somebody that hasn't pled until it's actually said, of course. But that indication today or yesterday, it's certainly unusual. Listeners, I can't think of something like that.
Certainly can't think of people indicating they're going to plea before a book of evidence has been served on them. But look, there has been extra pressure on him initially. Okay, we're saying that he's not somebody who's used to, he's never been behind bars before in his life. He was a high-flying businessman. He's arrested as part of this massive, big investigation with, the focus being on Kerry, the focus being on, in a wider sense, the Sinaloa cartel, and the missing Killorglin man who is wanted in Chile, Maurice Salazar, related into the Sinaloa cartel. Quite an extraordinary story. I mean, when we were on the road with the shows, we were down in Kerry, and that's all anybody wanted to talk about and they were interested in, because it was just such a sensational thing to happen in that part of the world. And of course, the charges coming against them relate to the seizure of the methamphetamine in Cork Harbour at Cork Port on October 16th, that it was understood that it had been stored in the Ballyseedy.
Yeah, that's the allegation, is that it had been stored in the Ballyseedy
Garden Centre.
Yeah, and eventually moved, and that while it was in Ballyseedy, some paperwork had been done to allow it to be received in Australia, the shipment, and that's the allegation of the state. Certainly the pressure will have come on further last week when more charges were brought by the state against the two co-accused, including Nathan McDonnell, and their charges under Ireland's anti-gangland laws. In Nathan McDonnell's case, it's basically a charge of facilitating a crime gang and knowing of the existence of the crime gang. So it would be that he was already facing charges in relation to the sale and supply of the drugs, but this would have been an extra charge.
There were 7 extra charges in total, I think, laid on the two of them. The second, his co-accused being James Leen from Listowel, and he was charged with directing a criminal organisation, which is a hefty charge to be facing for anybody. There haven't been that many people that have been convicted or pleaded guilty in relation to it. So he is the co-accused, and he's facing drug-related charges as well. When are we likely to see this case actually come before the courts? Because even, of course, if Nathan McDonnell does plead guilty, he will have to stand in the Special Criminal Court and accept that that is his plea and indicate to the court that that's his plea. This won't be done over video link.
No, he will stand in the court when he's formally arraigned. If he pleads guilty, as is indicated here, and of course that's just an indication, then he would begin a sentencing hearing in the aftermath of the guilty plea. That could take a number of months, and if he was to get to that point, a sentence hearing would include stuff like probation reports and, what mitigation the defence would want to put forward in that case. So it's still all a long way away. Obviously, we've heard details of how Nathan McDonnell has applied for bail on a number of occasions. He was refused bail initially in the local court. He eventually went to the High Court, and despite the fact that his father offered to put forward a good chunk of money, that was refused on the basis that because of the nature of the charge, because of the nature of the resources involved, that he would face a flight risk. So he's been in custody for a period of time, and that would also maybe be a factor if it ever gets to a sentencing hearing. But yeah, it was an unusual thing yesterday.
We didn't expect to be talking about this again before the serving of the Book of Evidence, which is happening on July 30th.
No.
And Mr. Leen will be before Tralee District Court in person for that date for the Book of Evidence to be served. There's no indication yet whether McDonnell will be too, but there will be a lot of interest on that Tralee District Court that day. But yeah, we didn't really expect to be updating anymore. This should have been simply a mention to see, in the district court level, these cases are brought up just to keep them kicking along and making sure that everything is coming together for the the date and to move the cases forward.
Yeah, I mean, the judge had an interaction with Mr. McDonnell's lawyer. The barrister said he needs to speak to his client privately based on what was being said this morning. And Judge David Waters said he better stay away from any cloak and daggers. And Mr. O'Connell, the legal representative, replied, "Cloak and daggers is what it is." So what that, all of that will become clear because he'll be back in court ahead of the book of evidence being served next week. And Judge Waters asked if the state was agreeable to mentioning the matter on Monday for further clarification at Killarney District Court. And Sergeant Manton, who's obviously representing the guards, agreed that after checking with the state solicitor, who was also in court. Okay. So these things are complex as they wend their way through, and it always shows you, in fact, again, it shows you the importance of having local court reporters attending these hearings.
Because I was going to say to you, unfortunately, I won't be able to attend that one myself next week, but you probably keep an eye on it and see what happens.
Absolutely. But I mean, just
that's
the
on
fact.
Tuesday, July 30th, yeah.
Yeah, no, it just shows you, obviously, we have our own, the Kerry man, Sinead Kelleher, who works in Media House, same as us, and she's been providing great court copy for all of the group over time and attends every hearing. And also Radio Kerry have been at them as well. Yeah. There's obviously huge local interest, so there is a good reason for them to be there. But yeah, without them being there for this absolutely random hearing that you would think there's, probably nothing is going to happen. Just the fact that they're there, I think we spoke about it last week. That's why I'm bringing it up. It just shows you how important it is.
Yeah, because of course there was some stuff missed recently, and it's just because of the lack of court reporters.
It is.
Great job opportunity for anybody out there to start covering the local courts and freelancing the copy.
Well,
into
exactly.
The media. You take your chances a little bit with that kind of a job to see what happens. But I mean, I always found those district courts to be most entertaining, and they represent.
Exactly. When either or both of us get cancelled, we can go back to the district courts and cover them.
I would do it. Yeah. And that's going to happen. You do know that.
It is.
Yeah.
That's the fallback plan.
I'm told I'd be cancelled most days by certain things I come out with. It's just, at least I haven't come out with them on.
Yeah. The right people haven't been listening at the right time.
Exactly. So, yeah. Anyway, there by the grace of God, go we all. Okay. We'll come back to that next week.
Thanks, Nicola.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.